Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chasing a Murderer. Today, we're going over one of probably the most insane stories I've ever covered. Part 156 of Life Beyond the Grave. An insanely detailed timeline of the Doomsday Couple. In the story, you will hear about zombies, angels, and godly messages. To be honest, this is a cult that was basically a cult of translated or exalted beings. They referred to themselves as the 144,000. The head of this 144,000 supposedly was Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow. Now you mustn't forget that Chad Daybell was a self-proclaimed visionary. And before Lori even met Chad, she was having conversations in the temple with people like Moroni, an angel attached to the Mormon religion, mostly associated with Joseph Smith. We left off with Lori Vallow moving her two children, TYLEE Ryan and JJ Vallow, to Rexburg, Idaho. She moved there in September of 2019, just a few months after Charles Vallow was shot. September 7th, 2019. Chad Daybell is living with his librarian wife in Salem, Idaho. Alex Cox had just moved out of the townhome that Lori was living in and has acquired his own townhouse just a few doors down. We learned in earlier podcasts that neither townhome was really furnished. It's as if these families are living out of a suitcase. Lori Vallow's adoptive son, JJ Vallow, was having a very difficult time. He was having trouble dealing with the chaos surrounding him, the moving, and with the absence of his father, Charles Vallow. We mentioned it earlier that JJ was acting out. He wasn't taking all these changes well at all. And if Lori Vallow was that perfect mother, according to her family, why didn't she see or understand, realize, or care for the pain she was putting her children through? And yet, Lori was now preparing JJ for another loss in his life, and someone that means a lot to him. She had told JJ that her sister TYLEE Ryan was going away soon. After all, Lori made it very clear to multiple people in her life that TYLEE Ryan was a bratty teen causing tons of issues. Many of those issues were with her friends like Melanie Gibb and her lover, Chad Daybell. It was clear that TYLEE Ryan was not happy with the choices that her mother was making or the people she was hanging out with. Melanie Gibb mentioned in one of her first testimonies in the Lori Vallow case that Lori Vallow was having a lot of issues with TYLEE, but also she wasn't a big fan of TYLEE herself. And that triggered a lot of, very concerned people disliking that comment. From then on, Melanie Gibb was real careful how she used her words. Melanie was well aware that TYLEE was not her biggest fan. And TYLEE, too, was going through a lot that many of us probably will never understand. Suddenly, TYLEE seems cut off from the entire world, her friends, her families, and she must feel utterly alone. If you followed this series, you know that I mentioned multiple times that TYLEE wanted to live with a friend, but Lori wasn't up for that. Yet Lori continued to complain that her daughter was a brat. She moaned, she groaned. She was having to deal with her daughter's poor health, and now there's signs that TYLEE's having some mental stresses. In a 2024 phone call with her son, Colby Ryan, we heard information we had been waiting for years, and it come out of Lori Vallow's mouth. Did Lori really see TYLEE as a brat, as many of us felt she did? Well, turns out she did. And Colby Ryan's face said enough. I think that was a wake-up call for him, and he was absolutely disgusted. Lori Vallow also mentioned TYLEE's mental struggles and that she was taking a medication, and mentioned that she wasn't taking it but blamed it on TYLEE. Most of us know that most everything Lori says is a lie and that you apply opposite day. So not only was Ryan struggling with her mental health, she probably had depression. She was probably scared to death, and she wasn't able to care for herself. The only thing that really mattered to Lori was Lori and Chad. So I think it's safe to assume that TYLEE Ryan had been neglected just as JJ was. And as a mother myself, I really can't find one excuse in this world to neglect our children and their health care altogether. And and TYLEE's struggles with Lori's friends most likely was TYLEE's way of screaming for help. To Chad and Lori, TYLEE was surrounded by demons and possessed by demons, and their main goal is to strip away anything and everything in that child's life. So TYLEE must have wondered, what did she do to deserve this? She had been one of Lori Vallow's most supportive people after Charles Vallow was shot. And as if things were not bad enough, Alex Cox, Lori's brother, and Lori planned a trip to Yellowstone with Lori's children, TYLEE and JJ. And that trip was scheduled for September 8th. Alex Cox, Lori, and Chad Daybell have been orchestrating some type of evil plans for both of her children. But the first date, which I mentioned earlier, was September 8th, was, the first set of plans that would begin the disappearance of her children. And the fact that Chad was more than supportive to this idea of her children, being zombies or meat bags for demons is, I never could figure out why he would go and support the extreme version of what he already kind of teaches. According to many people in this group/cult, TYLEE's spirit had already been gone long ago and was taken by dark entities. Most people who are possessed, priests will actually exorcise the demon, and that person can go on living their life as normal. But in this cult, that's not the case. When the demon has taken over the body, the only way to free them is through death. And after that death, they must be either burned or the mouth taped. And that should be done immediately to prevent another demon from jumping into the vacant body. What does TYLEE understand about these demons and the demon takeover, or even this group's teaching, is really unknown. And it's not certain if she really knew how much danger she was in during this time. What's really insane is what we're hearing from neighbors is JJ was telling neighbors that it was around September 7th, that his sister would be leaving soon. TYLEE, being a smart girl that she is, she knew about these plans. And was Lori, talking to TYLEE about any type of plan? Especially since one of the reasons for TYLEE's disappearance, Lori gives, is her daughter was at BYU. But there's been no evidence that she even attempted to go to BYU. However, around this same time, Lori is logging into JJ's school, catching up on the post. We know around this timeline that Alex Cox is supporting his sister and Chad Daybell 100%, and he seems to have accepted the teachings and beliefs of this group. Before all this, Alex Cox was considered the funny, weird uncle who would protect his family at any cost. Now, he's helping his sister and her lover plan out his niece's demise. Just before this, Alex Cox's ranking within this group was also climbing. Things had changed from him having several, zero exaltations to several. Zulema describes some of the ranking system and what she believed Alex Cox's ranking was during the Chad Daybell trial in 2024. Real quick, she is talking about some of the casting out gatherings that they had, how Alex wasn't at the first one, but he was later at the second one, and that's because his rankings changed.
This was there as well. Did you learn why Alex was present at the second one, but not the first one?
At first, Chad and Lori had said that Alex was a first creation, only the first time that he had come to the earth. So he had not been in prior worlds. He had only come to this world, and this was his first time in this world. Therefore, he had a very low rating. I believe he was only like a 2 or something like that. And therefore, he wasn't spiritually savvy. And then his rating changed. They said that they had found out that Alex had been in other worlds before, and that he had been exalted in other worlds before, and now his spiritual standing had changed.
And when you say they said that, is that Chad and Lori?
Correct.
So now that his spiritual status had changed, he was able to be at the casting?
Correct.
And you talked about assignments being given. Who would give those assignments?
Lori would.
Do you recall what Alex's assignment was?
He was always the warrior.
Did Alex seem to believe?
Yes.
Was that second casting successful?
Yes. Again, Lori called Chad to verify that he had been successful, and Chad said that he had been. And but then, just as the first time, later on, we found out that there was again that period of time where another spirit could come and possess the body, and that this time there was a very high dark spirit. There was this demon that had done this for hundreds of years and had done the same things hundreds of times or thousands of times, and that he was very experienced at doing this. And now Charles' body was possessed by a demon called Hyblos.
Now, it's very important to know that Zulema's trip to Rexburg in September is before Melanie Gibbs, which is September 18th and on. So I'm guessing that Zulema was there at some point not too far when TYLEE disappears. I'm going to share a little bit of that testimony as well.
After your trip to Rexburg, is that correct?
Yes.
Did you see Chad while you were in Rexburg?
Yes.
And do you recall, let me back up, was Tammy still alive during this time?
Yes.
Do you recall being asked to do something so Chad could come over?
Yes, he asked me to live and to send him a text asking him to come and see me speak about my recent trip, and that I was inviting him to come and see me speak.
And did you in fact do that?
Yes, I did.
And did Chad come over?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to observe Chad and Lori together?
Yes.
And what were their interactions?
They were holding hands, they were hugging, they sitting on the couch with their legs entangled, just very physically romantic.
While you were there, did you also take a trip to Mesa Falls?
Yes.
Do you recall who went?
It was Alex, Lori, Chad, and I.
Did you make any observations of Chad and Lori on that trip?
Yes, they were. Alex was driving. I was sitting in the front seat, and Chad and Lori were in the back seat, and they were hugging and kissing and romantically physical.
While you were visiting, did you receive a blessing?
Yes.
Who gave you the blessing?
Chad.
And do you recall some of what he said in the blessing?
Yes. In this blessing, he said, Jesus Christ is standing right next to me, and he is saying this to you. All of your sins are forgiven, and he is telling you that it is time for you to leave Babylon and to move to Rexburg.
Had you previously indicated you didn't think you wanted to move to Rexburg?
Plenty of times, but they kept on insisting, being very forceful that I move to Rexburg.
And at this time, were you actually dating Alex Cox?
We were being friends and getting to know each other, so not dating.
Did Chad also give Alex a blessing?
Yes.
And do you recall some of what was in Alex's blessing?
He also started the same way, saying that Jesus Christ was standing right next to him and that he was giving him the words to say.
We'll pause right there. So you can see that, Chad and Lori are very pushy, making their demands, basically, of what they want these people within this group to do. And it seems that Chad used his blessings in very manipulative ways and even creating relationships, building a relationship between Zulema and Alex Cox. Now let's listen to how Alex Cox reacted to what Chad says to him.
With him, and that all of his sins were forgiven.
How did Alex react to that blessing?
He started sobbing.
And again, part of the blessing was that you were to move to Rexburg. Do you recall saying that?
Yes.
Did you have any intention to move to Rexburg?
No.
Did you have any ties to Rexburg outside of Lori, Chad, and Alex?
No.
Did you have a job in Rexburg?
No.
Did you end up talking to Chad or Lori about that, the fact that you didn't have a job?
After their insistence of me moving to Rexburg, over and over again, I said, what could I possibly do in Rexburg? I don't have a job there. My skills and my past experience won't match anything that is there. I don't have a job, family, ties to anything in Rexburg. Especially, how would I even support myself?
And do you recall Lori or Chad telling you something in regards to that?
Yeah, Lori said to me, oh, don't worry about it. Melly has enough money for all of us.
And I'll probably play that a few more times throughout the series. I want people to understand how manipulative Lori is, because Melanie Boudreaux has not moved to Rexburg yet. So the timing of this is very important to understand how manipulative Lori is and her intentions with her niece. So it's not certain. Did Melanie Boudreaux understand that Lori Vallow knew that she could manipulate her in a way that they might could get $1 million if Brandon Boudreaux were to pass away? Will this be the evidence presented in the new upcoming trial for Charles Vallow and Brandon Boudreaux? Now, this we hear is coming from Lori Vallow. But does Chad Daybell know, which part he would play in all this? Did he have a part to play? And did he even know about this? Thinking about it, if there's a possibility that Lori might have already been planning not only TYLEE and JJ's demise, but Brandon Boudreaux's. I'm sure that's more information we will get as court proceeds. I think we're going to get a lot more new information in the Charles Vallow and Brandon Boudreaux trial. So jumping back to Zulema, it seemed that Zulema was one of the main ones that seemed to understand the ranking system. We know that Melanie Gibb would continue to play stupid later on when investigators asked questions on such topics. But what we learned in Chad Daybell's trial, it is suggested that Melanie Gibb might have been a teacher, not just an innocent bystander / victim of Lori Vallow. According to testimony by Zulema at Chad Daybell's trial, she also hinted that Lori was the main teacher in this ranking system, at least for their circle, and that the ideas had, she kind of learned some of that stuff from Chad Daybell. But there's times that Zulema will point the finger to Chad Daybell, yet she would not have heard any of it come out of his mouth. So for this group that believes that they're exalted beings or translated beings, they are earned their place in this celestial realm, they like to play stupid. Now, they did learn some of this stuff from their LDS teachings. Chad and Lori added their own ideas and their own little twist of what exalted beings are and how you acquire being one. And all of these people believed that they were direct helpers from God. They all had missions, serious missions to fulfill here on earth, and that they had paid their dues in past lives. Being exalted beings meant that they had no need to repent or even seek repentance. So here you have this group, and the numbers fluctuated depending on if Lori liked you at the moment, between 4 to 7 or 8 people that believe that they are ranked higher than the majority of people here on earth. They had even taught, when I say they, Lori and Chad, that they were the leaders of this holy council of 48, and everyone else in their group has a chance or will be part of that 48. So VIP godly seats, VIP council, and VIP plans on this planet. There's so much I want to cover in this part of the timeline, but I keep promising we're going to get to this part, and if I have to, I'll just hop backwards. We know that on September 8th of 2019, that's one of the most horrific dates that we know in this case. And it's kind of hard. We'll just kind of go back and forth between September 8th and September 9th. Now, on the early morning hours of September 9th, suspicious activity surrounding the children's, in the future, their last known sighting, at least for TYLEE Ryan. They had taken a family day trip to Yellowstone Park. TYLEE was with her mother, Lori Vallow, her uncle, Alex Cox, and her brother, JJ Vallow. From outsiders looking in, it appeared that this was a great family having a family adventure, just like many other families do. This is the picture that Lori likes to paint anyways. But looks can be deceiving. And Lori is the perfect deceiver. In fact, she is the master of deception. So on September 8th, TYLEE is seen for the last time. Phone records indicate that TYLEE, JJ, and Lori are at Yellowstone. There's 2 photos, one from Lori's iCloud account and one from the National Park Service entrance. Both of those photos indeed capture TYLEE in Yellowstone that day. And there would be no confirmed sighting of TYLEE after September 8th. There will be 0 witnesses to say that TYLEE Ryan was around September 9th, 10th, 11th, and so on. This includes neighbors at the townhomes where Lori lived. If you look at this photograph of TYLEE and JJ together standing just a couple of feet away from her uncle Alex Cox, Alex Cox isn't looking her in the eyes. In fact, he's looking straight ahead with a smirk on his face. It appears that Lori most likely is the one taking the photo. Something I noticed about TYLEE in this photo is her flushed cheeks and her glazed over eyes. TYLEE did not look like she was feeling her best that day. Now, most of you have heard these details, so we're not going to go too deep into this because I have so much to cover. But they had a few meals inside the park, and they actually were traveling in a silver 2017 Ford F-150 pickup. This vehicle is believed to belong to Alex Cox. I really haven't had time to update the exact times here. We know that they stopped briefly at a barbecue restaurant in West Yellowstone before they headed back home, in which they arrived in Rexburg around 8:37 p.m. that night. So it's around 6:45 p.m. to around 7:02 that investigators believe the Cox family is at Buckaroo Bill's barbecue. Alex Cox is said to have been at his sister Lori's apartment just after 9:30 p.m. He leaves his sister's apartment. Then, here we go. 9:43 p.m. to around 9:53 p.m. Alex Cox visits Maverick gas station on Main Street in Rexburg. Shortly after that, well, not too long, around 10:44 p.m. to around, it looks like 11:15 p.m., Alex Cox is at Lori Vallow's apartment again. And as midnight approaches, Alex Cox is back at his apartment. Okay, let's pause there. Looking back, it's 2017, and Lori had told several family members, including Summer, Zach, and several others, including Colby, guys, and several times to Colby, that she was like Job and that she would lose everything. And so a recent phone call on a podcast Colby has, he talks to his mother and she admits that she was going to lose everything before she met Chad Daybell.
So I learned all these things that I know from Jesus personally. So when he came to me in the temple and he put his hands on my head and ordained me to do something for him, like a job, right? And he said, will you do this job if you lose everything? This was in 2017. And then he said, will you do this job if you become like Job? That's what he asked me. And at the time, when he was right there with me, and you have those wonderful, heavenly, peaceful feelings, I thought, sure, I'll do anything you want me to. Go to the ends of the earth. I'll follow you to the ends of the earth like Peter. And then you walk into that scene and you're on the ground like Peter. Like, what is this about? What do you mean losing everything? I lost everyone, and including you, which was really the hardest loss of all to me, because you were my best friend for 24 years. And losing you over the past 4 years was harder on me than even losing the kids.
So right before TYLEE Ryan disappears, Lori Vallow tells her son later that she did not miss TYLEE or JJ as much as she would miss him, but he is still alive. During this time, when Alex Cox has driven back to Rexburg with Lori, TYLEE Ryan, and JJ Vallow, according to investigators later, Alex Cox is over at Lori's apartment during the early morning hours of September 9th. They track his GPS information and discover that there's some quite odd things going on. But earlier that day, on September 8th, Tammy Daybell is increasing her life insurance policy. Something Emma Daybell, her daughter, says she did on her own free will without her father, Chad Daybell, really being involved with that. But that didn't seem to be truthful at all. So while Lori and Alex are in Yellowstone, they're preparing, whatever they're preparing to do with TYLEE, Chad has other preparations in mind. He has Tammy increase her life insurance policy. The thing that actually backs Emma into a corner and shows that she's a liar is the fact that they found Chad Daybell's signature on Tammy's application to increase Tammy's life map insurance to the maximum allowed under the policy. This really shows Emma's reliability and trustworthiness to be very weak. I'll have to say, everyone following this case, they tried their best to give Chad Daybell the benefit of the doubt. Investigators, not so much. They really felt like they might have played a bigger role in this, and that being said through the investigation. How much they truly knew, well, is unknown. But the majority of the people following this case had a huge dislike and distrust for Emma Daybell. Emma's demeanor on the stand for Chad Daybell's trial in 2024 was very aggressive against her mom.
Thing that she enjoyed? Yes. Fair to say your mom enjoyed physical activity?
She enjoyed video games.
And when you say video games, some of them, you described the Wii. Were there other types of video games your mom liked?
Yes.
And what were those?
Farming simulations, Pokemon.
Would she play those on her phone, do you know?
Yes, and other handheld devices.
And then she liked to play the Wii as well?
Periodically.
And she took self-defense classes?
Not formal classes, it was with our church.
But was that a voluntary thing?
Yes.
So she wanted to go do that?
Yes.
And that's physical activity?
Yes.
She wanted to participate in Zumba, correct?
Yes.
She wanted to do clogging?
Yes.
She was training for a 5K?
No.
You say she wasn't training for a 5K?
She was not training for a 5K.
Would it surprise you that other people said she was?
No.
We talked earlier a little bit. You weren't privy to all your mom and dad's communications, right?
No.
You weren't privy to all your mom's conversations that she'd have with people, correct?
Correct.
So at school, she may have conversations when you weren't around, right?
Yes.
She may tell people things that you have no idea she told them, right?
Yes.
And counsel talked to you about an insurance policy. that was increased. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And you said your mom did that on her own.
Yes.
Why was your dad's signature on the application?
I think she took out insurance on him.
Your Honor, may I be handed State's Exhibit 151?
Yes.
Did you have a chance to look that over?
Yes.
Do you see on the back page whose signatures were there?
Yes.
And whose are those?
It says employee's signature, Tamara M. Daybell. Spouse's signature of applying for coverage, Chad G. Daybell.
And do you see dates by those?
9/8/19.
Is it the same date on both signatures?
Yes.
And can you see that that's only insurance for your mother?
Yes.
Though Emma was caught in direct lie, she really doesn't flinch a bit. In earlier testimony, she was sitting beside her mom when she was getting all this insurance and her dad wasn't present. During this time, guys, TYLEE Ryan and JJ Vallow, Lori Vallow, and Alex Cox are strolling through Yellowstone. Let's continue listening to this testimony.
And Miss Marie, can you see which company this is through?
Yes.
And what company is that?
Life map.
And then do you see kind of towards the bottom a box marked with an amount?
Yes.
And what is that box?
80,000.
What Emma says here, I'm just throwing this in here because it's important. Because Chad Daybell claims that he did not have his wife's passwords.
And Miss Marie, I believe you indicated that your parents would share their passwords with each other.
Yes.
So is it fair to say that they could access each other's accounts?
Yes.
So your dad could delete emails or block contacts on your mom's account?
If he knew how.
So there was more that prosecutors were insinuating about there, but I'm not sure if we'll ever find out what they were referring to exactly. According to Colby, on September 8th, the day before TYLEE goes missing, while TYLEE's in Yellowstone, at some point he texts her. Here is that testimony.
I'm going to call your attention to September 8th, 2019. Did you have a text conversation with TYLEE Ryan that day?
Yes.
What was the general nature of that text conversation?
I had asked her if she could transfer money over from Venmo to me.
And how did she respond? How did she respond when you asked her to send money to you?
She said that she was no longer in control of her money and that my mom was handling it.
Okay. Did you happen to speak to your mom that day?
Yes.
On September 8th, 2019?
Yes.
Did she tell you where they were?
Yes.
Were you able to hear TYLEE on that phone call?
Yes.
Where were they?
They said that they were in the Yellowstone gift shop.
Okay. Is that Yellowstone National Park?
Yes.
Okay.
So prosecutors were able to figure out by several sources that Lori, after using up all of Charles Vallow's funds and anybody else's funds she could get her hands on, she had now taken control over her own daughter's funds, which is extremely, it's just sickening to me. Her daughter's been suffering. She's struggling with her mental health. She's stressed. JJ Vallow's stressed. And all she's doing is trying to find a way to take everything that they have left away from them. TYLEE has had several outcries. Her acting out is a cry for help. It's the same thing she did when Lori was divorcing Joseph Ryan. This is the hardest, one of the parts in this timeline that's hardest for me. This is 5 years of hard research. And this video alone was another 4 days of constant work. This part of the timeline is very difficult for me to get out because I want to share everything with you guys. So bear with me. And I would like to say, if you do appreciate the hard work I put into this, please like and share, subscribe, please, and comment. Do not forget about our missing girls, people like Summer Wells, Jasmine Robinson, Dulce, Donita, so many more. Their stories continue to go on unsolved. They need your help immediately, and you can do that by sharing their picture on your social media today. Thank you so much, guys, for your support, and I love you guys, and I'll see you guys soon.